We're going to have a slight change of direction. The last half hour was dedicated to question and answer session for the current board, but I think the view of the current board is that their success in hindsight will be determined by the success of the next board, and the 4 board candidates for that are put their names forward, that we're going to be speaking at the AGM tomorrow. The concern with that is that I suspect the audience will be smaller tomorrow at 1 o'clock than it is now. So with some encouragement from the DFA leadership and so on, we've collectively decided that we will give those 4 board candidates a chance to talk to you first, and then the current board will mop up with any questions afterwards. But we are aiming to be finished as soon after 5:30 as we can. So if those 4 new board candidates can come up here. And we'll get them to in no particular order, seeing as Mark's up first. I'll get Mark to go first, and then Chris, and then Andy, and then Mike. How's that? So Mark, I'll let you introduce yourself to people and give us a little bit of some thoughts. Thanks.
Okay. Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Harris. I come from Huntly in the North Waikato. I'm actually a dairy farmer, and I farm a bit of beef as well. And I grew up on that farm, which I run today. But my training is as an engineer. I am a mechanical engineer, and I did a PhD in steelmaking. And my first job was working with BHP in Glenbrook. Then I travelled overseas and lived in the UK for a while, and I worked in the water industry over there. It was about the time that, I don't know if you remember the Yorkshire water crisis, some of you fellows probably would, when Yorkshire ran out of water, and I was involved in a bit of that kind of stuff. I then came back to New Zealand, and I worked for meat research, Marins. And my involvement there was with chilling and freezing processes for meat and understanding the relationships between those processes and the quality of meat. And I've thoroughly enjoyed that 5 years of my life, and worked with most of the meat companies in New Zealand during that time. At that time, I then got involved with Gallagher. So I'm now, in my current position, I'm the marketing manager at Gallagher, and I'm responsible for the global strategy for Gallagher Animal Management, and so the products that Gallagher produces that you guys use, I'm hoping most of you will use them. That's my job, and I'm also responsible for the communications of those products. So I call myself a failed engineer now, because I've probably lost most of those skills that I had, but it's quite a handy background because it gives you the ability to ask a few questions. And the Gallagher role's been awesome for me, in that it is the intersection of technology and farming, and so I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and I've learnt a lot over the 15 years I've been there about supply chains and doing international business, and just how to be successful as a global company. Because interestingly enough, that company has about 20% of the worldwide market share for the industry it's in, and it's pretty successful. So it's been a real great learning curve. So more recently, I am involved at a governance level in 2 companies that Gallagher has invested in. One of them is a company called DINZ, which is a company that's working, the last speaker was talking about exponential technology and that despair area and when things get going, and so we've invested in a company that's looking at being able to control animals without fences. And you probably make your own judgment where you think that particular idea or concept is on that scale. So I'm involved in that company, and I'm also involved in another company that we've set up looking at farm information systems and trying to make information available to farmers in a simple way from the types of equipment that we make. So there's a couple of my governance areas. My key interest, I guess, is, and the things that drive me are thinking about our pastoral sector. You know, that last presentation, is, you could think of it as scary. I've been thinking about that for a couple of years and deciding, what the heck, you know, where do we sit? And but to me it feels pretty clear, you know, because New Zealand is not flat. We're a fairly bumpy outfit and we grow grass, and I think it's clear that we've got to get a lot better at what we do across all our primary sectors, at making sure we've got a really integral story, and that we're doing the right thing by environment and welfare. All the things we've been hearing today, we've got to get our skates on, and it's really refreshing to hear today, you know, to reinforce some of those things. So I'm really focused on trying to make change where I can in everything I do, around making sure that there's a future for our kids, and the industries, and our primary industries, and the industries that support them. So that's my sort of focus, and hopefully I can make a contribution to that across as many areas as possible in our primary sector. So that's a bit about me.
Cheers. Working hard for something we don't care about, that's called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. For those that don't know me, I'm Chris Orange from Geraldine. I'm a director of Great Southern Dairy Farms, which farms about 1,700 hectares, running about a little over 1,500 hinds and finishing their weaners. I'm also a director of DINZ Dairy Transport, running 8 trucks, predominantly carting deer around the countryside. I've been involved with the DFA at branch level for nearly 20 years and have just done 6 years on the executive committee, 4 of those years as chairman. In 2011 I completed the Kellogg Rural Leadership course, which probably gave me the kick up the bum to get here. In the time with the executive, I have worked alongside the board, the DINZ board, and the CEO on a regular basis. We haven't always agreed on everything, but we've always had a great mutual respect. And I think evidence of that is in the being a partner in the P2P program. Going forward, the next few years will have to be will be crucial to get it right if we want our industry to prosper. It's easy to get locked up into looking at the here and now, but we need to be able to look forward and into the future. The problem at the moment with low venison kill that we have, 5 or 6 years ago, we would only dream that we could have such a problem. So DINZ, along with DFA and the farmers and the processors, have manoeuvred very well this industry from large numbers of hinds being killed to stabilisation and now retention and even expansion. There are also challenges in the velvet area. As production increases, that's going to have to be managed very, very carefully, with also regulatory requirements and also the animal welfare codes to contend with. It's important that DINZ act responsibly with the lower levy money from venison and operates within its means. We need to show our customers we farm ethically, and I think what we saw just before is an example of that, where we can get caught up. But we need to show that we lead the way sustainably, ethically, and that we are socially responsible within the regard of environment. Onto the P2P. It's great to see the processor collaboration going onto the market with Savannah, reducing our reliance on one country like Germany. And the reality is that most of that venison that was going to Germany was far too good to be classed as game. Velvet and co-products also continue to diversify out of such reliance on one market. The advanced party concept also has been an excellent way to engage farmers and at the same time lift productivity, and yesterday's conference was a great example of that. And I just want to see a raise of hands of who was actually at that conference. Yes, there's quite a few went to that and come along here. That's awesome. So the challenge before us is exciting. We need to remain nimble on our feet, keep focused. We need to be in a position to front foot any of those issues that arise. Use levy money wisely. Collaborate where we can, especially in regard to the environment. And if we do it right, venison and velvet will remain as high-end products, commanding the premiums that they deserve. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Andy Russell. I think very few of you will know me from the South Island. Who am I? Barbara and I farm 400 hectares on the west coast of the North Island, a coastal sand country property, and the deer farms just south of the Ohakea Aerodrome. We've been farming deer for 22 years. Got a bit of age about me when I left Lincoln College, Andy. Mid-Canterbury was a dirty, dusty sheep and extensive arable cropping farm. Today, Mid-Canterbury is covered in centre pivots and dairy cows for the bulk of it. And we're hearing some of the issues that are arising from that. So nothing stays still all the time. 22 years ago, we did a strategic plan for our farm, and we decided to put deer finishing in on the Ohakea property, and the plan was to convert the home property to a dairy farm. I had so much fun with deer, forgot all about the dairy conversion, and just bought the neighbours 11 years ago. That is a dairy farm. So why would the Deer Farmers Association want to select me as a potential candidate for the board of DINZ, the industry good body of DINZ? Well, 12 years ago, I joined with Jared Hickey as one of the first directors of First Light Venison. Jared had a vision, First Light Foods had a vision, and became one of the founding First Light Venison suppliers, and became a founding director. So in 12 years, that's what I've been doing the last 12 years. And I've immersed myself in that. Haven't got too involved in other deer politics, DFA, but I have found the challenge of being on that board, working with far-sighted people such as Jared and Jason Ross, just absolutely stunning. And it hasn't been all plain sailing. Learned about governance, training in governance, do the Institute of Directors courses. So what can I offer from that? Why would I be a suitable candidate? Well, First Light Venison is about getting to the market. We have an integrated supply chain in the market. First Light Venison continues as a producer group today. I buy off a First Light Venison producer group breeder from the King Country, Taupo Rick Hatchment, and we can take that to the market. And when you develop new markets, it takes time. You can't, in the processing industry, commonly they'll say, let's buy a new piece of machinery, we want a 15% return on that piece of machinery from day one. Marketing does not returns like that from day one, okay? It's about relationships and fostering those relationships. So this is why the DINZ, industry good body of DINZ, provides a wonderful foil to the production side of the Deer Farmers Associations, of which I am a member in Central Districts, with the processors and the velvet marketers. It's a very good synergy. So what are the challenges? We've heard many of the challenges today. Some outstanding speakers. What is our clarity of purpose? Where are we going? 6 months ago, Barbara, my wife, said to me, Andy, we've got to get out of the dairy industry. They're producing synthetic milk. I said, don't be ridiculous, dear. Who is the ridiculous one? You know, yeah. We have to be clean and green. We have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. We are talking fundamental changes in how we farm. Nitrogen, is that good? You know, GMO. We've had a former Fonterra director state in a farming newspaper that we must embrace genetically modified organisms. You know, GMO. The market is in this room. I produce lamb for lean meats that goes to Whole Foods supermarkets in the States. We would be kicked out of those stores if we couldn't verify we had no genetically modified organisms in our supply chain and our production base. We supply Waitrose with venison. I'm pretty sure their bar would be just as high as Whole Foods. So we need to engage in these debates. Water, we've heard about the water today. It's a huge issue. We can't sweep it under the carpet. So a board has to be able to strategically say, this is what would like everyone to embrace. We've got to take the ground floor, the deer farmers, the producers. We've got to take them on the journey to show why we have to do that. I believe I have the skills for some of that vision. We've got a great management team within DINZ. Very impressive. You look at their website, it's astounding. You know, there's a lot of intellectual capacity there. So it needs to be used. Yeah, that's just where I am. I'm a passionate deer farmer. I do not call myself a dairy farmer. And yeah, I love the industry. I hope it's got a great future. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just for you guys who don't know me, I'm Mike Wilkins. Look, I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself as a candidate for the DINZ board. Work-wise, I still hold my first full-time job, which has evolved to managing director of our family farming business, Wilkins Farming Company. I work in this alongside my two brothers, Brendan and Sean. It is a wide range of farming enterprises based in Northern Southland. Wilkins Farming Company runs a large-scale agriculture business that historically was just sheep and cropping. Today, Wilkins Farming has progressed to have a diverse mix, adding deer, beef, and dairy. Land development has also been a key focus for our company. This has seen us undertake projects such as irrigating large areas of dry land or converting land to deer and dairy farming. Deer become a major part of our business when my parents, Ray and Pam, first invested in deer back in 1980. Our deer herd has now evolved into an industry leader for production of venison. Our deer business has 4 income streams: venison, velvet, and trophy antler, along with stud genetics. In stock numbers, this reflects approximately between 8,000 and 10,000 head of deer. Out of all our enterprises that we farm at Wilkins Farming, the one I'm most passionate about is deer. I believe I can add benefit to this position because I have a wide understanding of where deer fit into the agricultural scene in New Zealand and a wide range of commercial agriculture experience to bring to the table that suits modern agriculture. I'm very motivated to see farm gate returns improve through creating a route to market that captures a fairer share of the retail value, not ignoring or improving productivity on the farm in a sustainable manner. I'm pleased that the returns recently have improved for deer farmers, but I do not want to see us rest on our laurels, which has seen supply and demand fundamentals correct our farm gate prices. I want to direct a market position that mitigates against commodity volatility and currency fluctuations. I believe the DINZ board has a very important role in supporting the industry. And personally, I'd be excited about the opportunity to work with the board. Is it a unique position that both exporters and producers are equally represented at the board table, developing and supporting an industry good and direction. Another key focus needs to see encouragement for rebuild of capital stock to ensure the industry retains and rebuilds critical mass. Look, just on a personal note, my comments have been pretty generic, but please be sure I do understand the detail required to back these comments. Thanks for your time. I look forward to the opportunity, if elected, to help the board continue its good works. And as keynote speaker Bruce Cottrell reminded us this morning, we are working in a modern and ever-changing world. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. If I could just, if you guys stay here, but if I could just have the rest of the board, the current board up here as well, and we have got an apology from Colin. He's been here all day, but he just got called away about an hour ago. What I'd like to do is just give you people the opportunity to ask any questions, first of all, of the candidates, but secondly, if there's anything that we believe that you would like to ask of the current board, fire away. Yep.
I was very remiss at the end of Kyla's chat that Rabobank have very generously sponsored this, and so if we could just have 1 minute, and I think Byron's got some things to do, and
I'm not up here as a candidate, so
You might be.
so I guess you know, looking at the day, the technology and the outside the square thinking that you know, that the speakers have dived into today is the kind of forward-thinking innovations that that New Zealand agriculture will need to survive in the future of farming. Rabobank's been a proud sponsor of the New Zealand Dairy Industry Conference since 2007, and we hope you've been able to take away a few points of inspiration that you'll be able to use in your farming business in the future. I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference, and I look forward to catching up with a few of you at dinner tonight. The other thing is your drink bottles. If anyone's not a customer of Rabo Direct and you're looking at doing a term deposit, each of those bottles is worth $50. There are some terms and conditions, but have a look, and we'll catch up later on. Thank you.
Happy to take questions for 10 minutes before you can go and have a beer. Right, who would like to be first up? Mandy. Oh, it's 2 in a row, Mandy. Bloody hell.
I've got a question for the board, and given the challenges that and some of the sobering chats that we've had, and there's tremendous opportunity. What's the board? What discussions have been happening around the board table to support us as producers and as industry to keep pace with the change and position us? What chats are happening at that level?
I'm going to jump to the deputy chair first. I'm going to stand back on this one, and then I'll get one of the producer members to make a comment, because it's a fairly generic question.
Look, when I came on the board 7 years ago with Andy McFarlane, Collier Isaacs, and we were determined coming onto the board at that time that we would leave a legacy of change within the industry, and we would do some things that we could hopefully reflect back on and be proud of as a board. As a result of that, we came together, we had a strategic meeting, and out of that was born the P2P strategy. So we've put in place as a board, I think we've been leaders within the livestock sector with the type of strategy that's come into place with regard to productivity improvements behind the farm gate, linked into market investment, 5 companies, the whole sector working collaboratively at a marketing end, and DINZ able to have real conversations with farmers about also lifting your game behind the farm gate and how we can assist you. 26 to 28 advanced parties around New Zealand is a fantastic result. We've shown beef and lamb that it's not just about focus farms and getting a sausage at the barbecue at the end of the day. We've done I think, an enormous amount driven through strategy of the board with farmers in an industry that's more connected than any other within the livestock sector. So I think we've had enormous change, Mandy, over that time. I think the challenge is going to be for the new board going forward, how we build on that and what's the next, what's the next stage look like? What's the strategy going to be from a new board to try and keep up with what we've done over the last 6 years?
Okay, one of the producer members like to make a further comment on that? Ian?
Yeah, thanks. Andy, just a couple of things, Mandy, pick up on your point. Yes, there has been a lot of discussion, particularly around volume of supply in both the two main products that we deal with, and that's probably linked to some of the discussion that there has been around the P2P program and the importance of maintaining that momentum, which was started or a few years ago, and in actual fact is ongoing. So we've got to maintain that momentum. So I think there's certainly been a bit of discussion around that.
Yep. Mike?
In an age of exponential change, is maintaining momentum good enough?
Would any of the new potential candidates like to go first? Yeah.
I think.
Yep, we got the old boy now. Yep.
I think the deputy chairman answered that question before, Mike. I think that the innovation that this board has demonstrated in the last few years in the P2P program to start with, which is a combined productivity and marketing strategy, is absolutely unique, and it's something you, the industry, can be proud of, because it's working at both ends. What we've got here is we've got a situation, for example, in the marketplace where the volumes are so low, these guys could say, we don't have to do anything. It's all going to sell itself. But what you've seen today is that outside the P2P program, like Savannah Europe and the work that's going on in China and so on, you've got some really neat, fantastic programs being driven by every individual company in their own right, regardless of volumes, a fantastic investment for the future. And you've got incredible strategies on the go, an outpouring of technology for farming folk constantly coming at you to help you lift your game. And, I think, and help you, improve your revenues. And so I think the industry is in a fantastic position right now, that the downside being the volumes, but we are rebuilding, and we're not coasting because we just don't have enough product. There's an awful lot going on, and I'm very pleased about what you've seen today, because that tells a story.
Anybody else like to add anything? Andy? William first, then Andy.
Yeah, just on that again, I think Bruce Cottrell said we had to improve by 20% every year. I think just on Marianne's presentation today with the meat companies and Reece, we saw that. And I think yesterday with the advanced parties where we saw the farmers, with taking up change, etc. I think that we're not certainly not status quo, and we've seen a lot of progression.
Thanks. No one likes change, and no farmer here probably likes the name Mike Joy, Dr. Mike Joy. Look, get your heads out of the sand, out of the water. We are going to continue to have to change. I asked Dan Coop. We're 5 years through a 5-year strategic plan, 2015 to 2020. 2.5 years through it. What's the next plan? The PGP's been going 2 years out of 7, so that's possibly morphing into the next plan. But we can't say this is good. I said at the partners meeting, discussion groups or advanced parties, of which I'm not a member, I haven't had the time to do that to date, you're going to have to keep reinventing yourself, because in the end, you will run out of oomph if you don't. So you just got to keep on keeping on. You can't just stop and say, this is good, You've got to keep going.
Just as an added comment, both to Mandy and Mike there, I mean, the big challenge here is we don't know what we don't know. If you take a comment that Mark just made a minute ago about the concept of containing animals without fencing and the sort of disruption, positive disruption and cost saving that might make and what possibilities it opens up, you know, just envisage some of these things. So the process of today's meeting, which, to give credit to Tony and the DINZ management for sourcing really good, innovative speakers to take ourselves outside the comfort zone and start thinking about some of the stuff, is the most important thing, because we can't, as Bruce said, we can't predict the future. What we've got to do is make sure we expose ourselves to other people that will challenge our thinking. Right, next question. Yep, over here. Yep.
Earlier on today, we heard about the Generation F, or the millennials, and I guess my question for the board is, how is the board engaging with the millennial generation at both ends of the supply chain, both at the farmer level and at the consumer or customer level?
Danny, do you want to go from one end of the supply chain first? So
was the question, what's the board doing, or? Yeah. Well, I guess through the P2P program, the board is engaging through that program with the next generation that are coming through. So we do have we're engaging with a number of young deer farmers. So we've had presentations to young farmers. One area that does need to be looked at is in terms of developing engagement through social media, and that's an area that we're currently not doing directly, but it is something that really, as an organisation, as companies are doing, need to start looking at that as well.
Anybody else like to make a comment on that? Oh, Chris.
When I got onto the executive committee, one of the first meetings we had, we sort of noticed that, you know, we were the next generation coming, and we put together the next generation concept program. We thought we might be able to run it for 1 year, have a year off, and then maybe do it every 2 years. It's been pretty successful. We've had about 50 to 60 every year for 4 years. And out of that, we've sort of added some social media to it, and I would say that we can do a bit more with that type of thing. With, you know, we've got a next generation Facebook page which keeps those people that are from different parts of the country connected. But I'm sure there's more work that we can do, and but I guess what I'm saying is that's a start from where we were 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, Clive.
You'll recall that the board itself has been driving further training programs, reintroduced and driving further training programs. Haven't been going on in the industry for a dozen years or more, and we've had several seminars at level 3 Ag ITO or PITO training. Just recently, Phil Stewart from the Deer Industry News magazine has been commissioned to do a complete rewrite of the material. And he's done an amazing job. It's absolutely fantastic. In fact, it's material, I believe, that could be, you know, right up with almost virtually farm management level. It's very, very good, very today, right up there and modern. That means that now that that's been finished, as soon as Ag ITO have approved that, or PITO rather, then the training courses will start again. And so that's another vehicle that the board is directly involved in terms of getting young people engaged.
Can I just add to that? Sorry, Hamish, I think too, to me it's a little bit field of dreams. If you don't build it, they're not going to come. If we had $5 schedules, We wouldn't be getting young farmers coming into the dairy industry. I think 4 years ago, a lot of you were mumbling that you were dairy farmers very quietly. I'd like to think that today you're talking about that quite loudly and quite proud of what you do in the industry that you're in. And that, to me, is going to draw more young people through into our industry than anything we can do as well. And I'd like to think the board's played its place together with the companies to lift returns and get ourselves into a space where young people are going to want to get involved in our industry.
Thanks, Glenn. I think that's right. I mean, the first priority is you've got to inspire people to want to be involved, and then it's a pretty simple agricultural philosophy. You breed lots of hoggets, and then you cull them hard to make sure what's left are damn good. Right. Are there any other burning question? No. I'm going to cut it off there. We need to be out of here very soon. Yep. No, Dave's just said, it's to throw down the gauntlet to the young ones, and we have got a number here, and we've had a lot yesterday, but we'd like to see a lot more. The challenge is to get involved and make a difference, both inside the farm gate and out. So that's it. What I would like to do before I hand over to Tony is just to thank the Tony and Pat, but it looks like you're standing up there wanting to do something too. Yep.
You are probably all aware that Andy is stepping down as chair and as a director of the board, which takes effect, I think, at the end of next month. So on behalf of the board, and I'd like to think that on behalf of all of you here, I'd just like to thank him for the contribution that he's made. I first met Andy 12 years ago, I think it was, at the Te Anau conference. The few of you would have been there. And the little bugger had the audacity to stand up and tell dairy farmers that they could be doing a better job. And it went down like a Malaysian jet, I can tell you. So, and it was the first time that it was raised that, farmers were getting 90% survival and fawning rates, but the national average was only 70%. And, he raised the fact that, the good ones out there were getting 8 years out of their hinds, and some of you only getting 2 years. And most dairy farmers had come along there to have a crack at the meat companies and probably the board, and they weren't that keen on, having to look at themselves and think about whether they should be doing the job better. I think when we talk about exponential change, there's been exponential change when you look at where we're at today, that we can have those conversations with farmers, and that there's an open sharing of information and discussions together about how not just to lift returns in markets, but how to become more profitable behind the farm gate. And that couldn't happen 12 years ago. So I think Andy's been absolutely fundamental in making that change. He's absolutely made a difference on the board. I mentioned before that that was our intention when we came on, that we did that. The legacy with the P2P program, the government money, the $4 million that we've got from government that goes into the investments that we're making from your hard-earned levy contributions, the advanced parties, which I think are a fantastic development, both in what you're doing from a production viewpoint, but socially as well, as dairy farmers, is tremendous. And I think beef and lamb are looking at that with a lot of envy. The board's brought the companies together, the exporters together collaboratively in a way that doesn't happen in other industries. He's been a very capable, competent and knowledgeable chairman who's been willing to share his knowledge and time with the board. And I think, there's never a truer example of, if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it. And that's very much Andy. Last year, he managed to tip himself over just after he arrived in Hawaii in the surf and broke his neck. It was a miracle that he is walking again, let alone 6 months later was leading people hiking around the Alpine passes in central Otago, and they couldn't keep up with the little bugger. So it's been a pleasure to be on the board with him, and I would just like to ask you all to show your appreciation to Andy for his contribution.